Greetings, everyone. It is the Chicken Box. We are back. I'm your host, Impeccable. Man, it has been a lot of chicken frying over these last weeks. If this is your very first time tuning in and we popped up on your thread at the Afro American newspaper, share the Chicken Box. I hope it's lunchtime or breakfast time, depending on where you're waking up. We have a fantastic show today. It is Black People versus Mental Health. That's right. This is where we share our truth. This is the Chicken Box. If you're from Baltimore, we're not eating food. This is where we jump on and we share our opinions, our research, and what's going on in the Black community. We're dispelling some myths. So grab your favorite food and beverage and let's get down to it. Everybody needs to get on the box sometimes, especially during these times. We have with us, I'm a Gen Xer for anybody, if I'm talking to you. We have Dr. Draper. How are you?
Hey there. How's everybody? So the first week we did this, I said I was representing the millennials, but then I had to do a reality check. I'm representing the baby boomers. So here I am. Good afternoon to everybody.
And Misha Green, really representing the millennials.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes, indeed. Fully actually a millennial. I don't know if that's something I should be proud of because y'all give us such a bad rep, but I'm here. I am proud to be representing for my generation.
So Misha, we don't give you a bad rep. We're glad to have you here. So
thank you. Thank you.
Listen, we did. If you missed our first episode, it was Black People versus Fried Chicken. And then we did Black People versus the Rona. And today we should have done Black People versus technology, but that's just how life happens. Man, this tech age is challenging and changing the lives of everybody all around. So let's just get right into it. We know everybody doesn't have a lot of time. Don't be a chicken. On this box, sometimes you just got to step up there and speak what's inside of you. You got to speak your truth, but we want to deal with some truths. And I think Dr. Draper, as we thought about this show, she was on her box way before we got started. So before we introduce our first guest, Dr. Draper, I'm going to just say you're on the box.
So I'm on the box. And so our topic today is Black people versus mental health. Listen, you're going to hear some things from our special guest today about how we look at mental health. All of us know that we're in the midst of a pandemic. Black people have been in a pandemic for 400 years, really. So we're in the midst of a pandemic, and it really does impact our mental health. So much so that there are people who will not come out of their houses. There are people who are being subjected. We're talking about Karens. There's some Black Karens too, by the way. Maybe it's another name. Maybe it's Karenique or something else. But people who are feeling the shame of, if they reveal that they had COVID, being shunned almost like the lepers in the Bible. And so a lot of things are going on in our minds. But I'm really interested in hearing from our guest, who is an expert on not just Black people, but even though I believe many people that he has treated have been African Americans, but he is an expert on healing mind, body, and soul and spirit, I guess. And so this whole issue, let me know, Kevin, when I need to get off the box, by the way. I can stay on the box about this for a long time. But you can ring the bell or the chicken can make the sound and I'm going to get off the box.
Well, I haven't come up with the chicken sound. Send me a chicken sound. I think you should share it if we just popped in. It's the little share button. Share it with some of your friends because sometimes people have some mental health issues that they have tucked away in the drawer that they don't know about. But we're going to bring our guest on, Dr. Leland Jones. Let's see if he's with us. Dr. Jones, welcome to the Chicken Box. How are you?
Welcome. I'm glad to be here. I'm taking a lunch break between patients right now, so I'm blessed to be in the Chicken Box, whatever that is.
Well, you're here, so why don't you tell us a little bit? We got a little overview that you're not only a medical doctor but a psychiatrist with great understanding of the ins and outs of mental health and the family business and how the brain works. So why don't you tell us kind of what's been your life passion and purpose over the past few years?
My life passion has been healing, how to get people healed. And over the last few years, I would say that I've come to look at things more holistically. Look at the whole person. Some doctors tend to look at the physical issues. What medication do you need to be on? And psychologists look at how do we need to change your behavior. And pastors, like Pastor Tony here, works on the spiritual, although the pastors have to work on everything else also. But also as a minister, you're working on the spiritual aspects. So what I do with my patients is to try to combine all these together and integrate those. So it just gives you more toolboxes to help people with, because you're not just stuck with what is the best medicine, or what is the best diet, or what is the best. So you have a number of toolboxes that you can integrate and help people with. So your goal is not just healing, but then you can move to health, and then you can move to wholeness, which is basically becoming who you're called to be, fulfilling your purpose, maximizing your life. So one area is just get you out of the hole, and then get you healthy. So you learn how to be not sick, which is, prevention is better than cure. Because now I don't need a cure. I don't need a miracle, because I'm already doing well. I'm already prosperous, spirit, soul, and body. So I don't need medicine, because I'm already over here. But then I'm over there now. God is like, He's shown me that, get you out. So now you got this person well, but now I want you to take them higher. So that's how I would start that. Jesus said, "Wilt thou be made whole?" Now He said that to the leper, or he said that to the man in the pool of Bethesda. And so a lot of times we just think, well, He's just going to get me out of the hole. But Jesus is offering a lot more than just physical healing. He's offering wholeness.
Absolutely. So that brings us right to our point. If you just tuned in, we popped up. It's lunchtime. This is the Chicken Box. We're talking about Black people versus mental health. It's a topic that has been considered taboo. It definitely affects us all, especially in the Black community. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Misha, can you tell us some of these stereotypes surrounding Black people versus mental health?
Absolutely. It's, as somebody who has grown up in the church, as obviously a member of the Black community, I have heard so many stereotypes about mental health. And in particular, people saying that Black people don't necessarily need to be treated for mental health issues. So I'm going to just break down some of the things that I've heard. Again, these are just stereotypes. It is not what we believe or here at the Afro is at all endorsing. These are the stereotypes. So we've been taught to pray it away. We've been taught that it's a luxury, not a necessity. Often we're taught that our emotions, we're just doing too much. Oh, she's just doing too much. He's just doing too much. Or they're just far too sensitive. And we're taught to keep our feelings inside, not to cry, not to show too much emotion. And then other people think of us as angry Black men or women, brutish, crazy, always being associated with addiction issues. These are the stereotypes that other people have about us in the Black community. So it's not only sort of the detriment that we have amongst ourselves and the attitude that we've had amongst our community for many years regarding mental health, but then it's also what other people see of us, which sort of perpetuates our things that we're talking about. So because other people look at us as angry Black men or women, right? Then we don't show emotion. And we're taught not to show emotion so that we're not associated as angry Black men or women. So it's this really, really awful cycle that we've been in. And later, obviously, we'll talk about some of the ways that it's been seen in popular culture in Hollywood. But these stereotypes are something that not only have existed for a number of years within our community, but then again, how other people have portrayed us in society. And we've seen that even back into our first episode, Black people versus fried chicken. We were portrayed as crazy, brutish people eating fried chicken in Congress and Gone with the Wind all those years ago. And so, of course, these stereotypes have been perpetuated, and it's quite sad. But that's why we got Dr. Jones. We have to have Black doctors to help us dispel some of these myths. So I'm super excited to talk to him today.
Absolutely. This is the Chicken Box, Black people versus mental health. We got Byron Deese. What's up, Byron? We got Chippy Bass saying she's going to share this. Bonnie says prevention is better than cure. Rena says an awesome topic that affects all of us. And then somebody else that I don't know what they said in there, but it's a long thing. Anyway, share it with a friend. Share it with yourself right now, because I mean, we really need to dig in. Dr. Draper?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Give us a good reference about what we're going on, and then we're gonna hear from the other doctor. We got doctors on it. You know, you need a doctor of the mind, body, spirit, and soul. Let's go.
Right. So you are so right. First of all, let me say this as my friend Diane Bell McCoy, who leads an organization here called Associated Black Charities, says often, Black people are not inherently broken. There's nothing wrong with Black people in terms of us at our creation. We're made in the image of God like anybody else. And so people are always trying to fix Black people. Listen, we're not broken. We have physical issues and mental health issues and spiritual issues and psychological issues. I said mental health. We have all of those things, but we are not broken, right? So however, there are structural and systemic things that we are subjected to that impact our mental health. I know Dr. Jones is going to jump on that. He says we ought to be just, going not just for being healthy, but for being whole. And so the National Alliance on Mental Health, for example, their CEO released a statement regarding these racial incidents across the country and the impact on mental health. I'm going to read a little bit of that, and then we're going to turn to Dr. Jones. But he said that the effect of racism and racial trauma on mental health is real and cannot be ignored. The disparity in access to mental health care in communities of color cannot be ignored. The inequality and lack of cultural competency in mental health treatment cannot be ignored. And so our nation's African-American community, he writes, is going through an extremely painful experience, pain that has been inflicted upon this community repeatedly throughout history. It's magnified by mass media and the repeated deaths. And so he's just writing, they are standing with all of the families and communities who have lost loved ones. And we at the Afro stand with our families as well. Since the ones we've lost senselessly, just due to racism, and more than 100,000, 200,000 lives lost to the pandemic, and disproportionately from our community. And so mental health is just so critical. Racism is a public health crisis that impacts our mental health. And so there are a lot of other statistics and things that people, we can look up, and I'm not going to jump on all those statistics now, but there are so many. I'll give you this one statistic. Out of 47.8 million Black Americans in 2019, nearly 7 million were diagnosed with some kind of mental health, mental illness, but that projection is probably higher because everyone doesn't get a diagnosis, and everybody who gets a diagnosis, it may not be right. All right, so I'm going to pass it along.
All right, pass it along. It's all right.
Pass it along.
We have 25% of 25%, and then we're going to get to 100% when we add them all up. And Dr. Jones, can you speak to these stereotypes that have been going on in our community for years, and why we don't like to go get any help for them? And I'm just not saying everybody. I'm just saying Black people as a whole.
Well, let me just go back to that statistic that Pastor Tony quoted, that 47 million African Americans and 7% have a diagnosis. Now, we know that the chances for somebody who's African American to go to some place where they can get a diagnosis is going to be very slim. So if you're not going to be going to a black psychiatrist, psychologist. Now you might wind up in the emergency room with a nervous breakdown, but most likely the majority of these 7 million, that's just a drop in the bucket compared to really who really has issues. So the statistics are people that have an official diagnosis. Now you have people that don't have an official diagnosis. Then you have people that may not meet the full criteria of emotional illness, but they're lonely. They're afraid. They are unhealthy. And so they have all these comorbidities. And so that's why COVID is so effective, so destructive, because we have all these other things going on. So we have untreated high blood pressure, silent killer. We have untreated diabetes. We have all these other issues. And so now we threw COVID on top of that and mental illness on top of that. And see, so now we have issues that are, and you know what? One of the beautiful things is Black people are so resilient. Well, we really have some problems. It's like Tony said, you know, we have a lot of strengths, but you know, going back to the mental illness part and the stigma is strong in all races, but especially in Black people, because I think one of the main things is. And I get a chance to speak in different places, and I spoke in Malaysia, on the other side of the world, and I use the expression "what happened in Vegas," and I put the mic out, and the whole congregation says stays in Vegas. So what happened in slavery? What happened with all of the violence against Black people? We tend to put that out. Okay, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going there. So in a way, we can't get those things healed because we don't even know what happened. We bring up another generation. We don't teach them about these things. See, so that even enlarges the stigma. See, one of my areas that I really consider my area of expertise is healing trauma. How do you go back to the traumatic memories? How do you get those healed? PTSD, and so, but that's an area. Even though I've been doing that for 20 years, it's hard to get that in the Black church or the Black society in general, because there's such a strong wall of defense. Don't go there. Don't talk about that until it hits the fan. And now we're like, whoa, you had a nervous breakdown, or you're dying so quickly, and nobody knows our pain. Nobody knows what racism does to us, let alone post-traumatic stress racism. It actually changes our DNA. So yeah, we don't talk about those things until now. I think this is great. This is coming out now because it's, you know, mental health is related to physical health and social health, and that's the whole 9 yards. So yeah, I think the stigma is huge. And so, but I think so you're breaking the ice here. You're breaking through. So the millennials and the Generation X can say, wait a minute, there are issues in my family. There are issues that we can deal with. These things are all treatable. These things are all curable. That's the good news.
Well, there we go. The good news. The good news is that you decided to tune in during your lunch break, your breakfast break, or your break from being a teacher. Or just being home, online school. We talked about, I feel like we talked about that. Did we talk about that?
We did.
All the days are running together, y'all. And you forget what day it is sometimes, and you just go by dates, and then your sleep cycle's off, your clock is off, and you're clocked onto the screen more time than ever. I don't know if that's causing any mental angst or not, but the stereotypes, how do we push back and say that it's okay to talk to somebody, Dr. Jones?
Well, you know, there was a study done, Harvard just did a study that one of the best things you can do with COVID and what's going on with the pandemic, one of the best things you can do for prevention is to talk to somebody, is to confide, is to open up. And that's one of the main things you do with grieving. You know, if you have somebody that are grieving, they lost a loved one, they lost family, is to talk to somebody. Because we tend, if you tend to repress and hold that in, and not talk, now you had what you had before the death, and now you got this new death, and that causes high blood pressure, diabetes, all these other things can go awry because we're not confiding. So that's one of the main things you can do. Whether you have a good friend or you have thank God you have a pastor. I'm sure you have a lot of calls, but it's really look for somebody that you can talk to.
and
You know,
be able to be talked to. Somebody put in the comments that they're in a state of constant grief, and if in fact you tune into today's news, you can. I know as Black men, we can be angry second after second if we ingest all of the news and the abuse. Now, I say out there that they have been doing this to us as Black people and Black men for years, hundreds of years. Just happens that we have technology now that can get the word to all of us. We have cameras now that can catch a lot of it, but still ingesting this just invokes anger. Not only in Black men, but I'm just saying in the whole Black community. And obviously, it has invoked anger in a lot of the millennial white communities as well. Misha, how have you seen, because you've been in the thick of the streets of DC, what's the color line out there on the street? What's the tone out there?
The tone, I think, for the most part, is urgency. People just really know that there needs to be a change, but anger tends to be the immediate extreme that people go to first before immense sadness or even extreme happiness, which, other than the fact that the people are gathered together, it's hard to find what the happiness is in there, right? But extreme anger is the go-to, whether it's because often I think, it's incited by the presence of police officers and these sort of military looking officials, some in full fatigues, and you'll see the tanks going down Pennsylvania Avenue. All of that tends to incite anger in people immediately. So it goes right back to what you were saying, Kevin. Like, people are really angry, for lack of a better word, about what's happening. And, just on a personal note, I think that even, experiencing all that I'm experiencing going on to the fields, I suffer with very, very mild Crohn's disease. And I feel just from whether it being just small anxiety when there is tear gas or when people are running or whatever, I've been feeling sometimes where I'll get like a weird Crohn's flare up. So I'm interested to hear from Dr. Jones more of that correlation between mental health and physical health, because while I think for the most part I am mentally okay, I'm doing my job and I'm out there, obviously some of that has to stir what's happening mentally and emotionally in me, and I'm definitely feeling it manifest sometimes in my body. I can't imagine people who struggle with more and how this is affecting it. And I actually, if I can go back to it, somebody had Heidi Herzog commented and said, I've been busy with my kids and the house and my depression, anxiety, and my type 2 diabetes and lupus and scoliosis. And again, I'm sure, from Heidi's comment, her depression and anxiety has been, her type 2 diabetes, lupus, and scoliosis has been heightened from her depression and anxiety just in the house with her kids. So yeah, I know from a personal experience, that's what I'm feeling and seeing from others, but it's sounding like that's what's happening from some of our viewers as well.
Dr. Jones, jump in.
Yeah, I want to jump in there. So actually, after this session today, my first patient has Crohn's, very severe Crohn's.
Wow. Yeah, and, I had to say mild because I know, I'm healthy. I still have my hair. I can eat, I cheat and eat foods I shouldn't eat. Most people with Crohn's cannot do that.
So this particular guy's been shot 3 different times. And so, he's got a number of very severe, let me say something about Crohn's though. And one of the things I suggested to him, because he has been bleeding a lot, is antioxidants. I'm really big on sort of holistic medicine. But antioxidants cut down on the inflammation. and everybody should be taking them because people live longer. It actually changes your DNA. Your DNA becomes healthier the more and we learned this in medical school 50 years ago, and they don't talk about this. Should be on the news. Why don't you talk about this? The more antioxidants you have in your system, the longer you live. It fights off the free radicals. It's protection. So I just told him about this a couple of weeks ago. He said his Crohn's is already doing better. See, so like grapeseed extract, pine bark extract, pycnogenol, that whole green tea extract. You know how effective green tea is, but green tea in a capsule. So you like drinking 20 cups of green tea, the extract in one capsule. And if you get in trouble, then you may 2 or 3 times. It lowers your blood pressure. It prevents stroke. All these things get better with just antioxidants. Now, Tony and Kevin, they know that I'm really big on juicing. But let me go back here to anger. Now, anger turned inward is what? You know what anger turned inward is, and from a psychological point, anger turned inward is depression. So one of the main causes of depression is anger that's turned inward. See, I can't take it out. If I don't take it out, see, if I turn it in, now I'm going to be depressed. And so some of the signs of depression, what are the signs of depression, for instance, which we need to be doing more screening, because now studies are showing that African-American males, the suicide rate is going up. It's almost doubled in teenagers. And what's up with that? See, so anger turned inward. So what does that look like? It looks like high blood pressure. It looks like, what does it look like? You guys, you can tell me a lot of the symptoms on the surface, but on the inside, we can hate ourselves. We can hate other people, but we can hate ourselves. And so unconsciously take it out on ourselves. And that's a huge issue because it's high blood pressure is a silent killer. And so what does depression look like in an African-American male or female? What does it look like? I'll tell you, let me tell you a few symptoms. One of the things it looks like is physical health is going down. See, so you're not healthy. You don't have the energy. You can't focus. See, so a lot of times it like I said, it comes out in our bodies. It comes out with PMS and PMDD in women. So now now the period is off the chain, or now we're bleeding heavier. And so there are a lot of things. It's almost like if you can't talk about it and you can't deal with it emotionally and you can't deal with it spiritually, then the body is going to shout. The body's going to scream. The body's going to say, okay, I got these things. And so then I'm taking something for headaches. I'm taking something for backaches. I'm taking something for pain. And pain and depression go together. So they tend to go. If you got one, then you tend to get the other. Chronic pain leads to depression, and chronic depression leads to pain. So that's why you have to treat the whole person. And so, yeah, anger turned inward and anger toward self, anger toward others. And so you see anger in families, anger toward the kids, and anger toward God. Why have you forsaken me?
Absolutely. So when you just mentioned that, this is the chicken box. Guys, we are sharing information when we connect and when we share on our personal pages, on the pages that we manage and own, we could help somebody. You could possibly, by sharing, help somebody today just by not being selfish and sharing. So if you're watching, Heidi, looks like Shanique, I'm messing your name up. I'm just going to say Miss Kent. She said, amen, Dr. Jones. But if in fact you do believe there is a God, the Bible talks about be angry and sin not. Does Dr. Draper, you want to touch on that?
Well, you started with the if, so if you believe in God, but let me say this, even people who believe in God still get angry.
Absolutely.
And so, right, and still sin.
Absolutely.
And still turn it inward and end up being, and it ends up being depression. I think that what Dr. Jones said was so key because we don't recognize the physical symptoms or the spiritual symptoms and how they impact who we are and what we do. And so when people say I'm depressed, they may not be clinically depressed, but they certainly might be depressed. And so a lot of times we throw these terms around. We don't even know what, really what they mean. Clinically doesn't mean that they don't get treated. And so Dr. Jones threw out a lot of helpful things around things that we can just do, antioxidants and those kinds of things to really help our bodies. And so I see that, we have a viewer who is saying that she's trying, put it back up, Kevin, trying to have their 17-year-old son struggles with severe depression to partner on a blog to discuss it. And so the more we talk about it, and so we talked about stereotypes and stigmas earlier, people hold things in. We all are mourning the loss, for example, of Chadwick Boseman, and we know that he visited some young people in the hospital, but we don't know whether or not he was really open in talking about his illness. And I think even with mental illness, sometimes we don't talk about the things that trouble us, right? And none of us is perfect all of the time. All of us have things that we go through, but if, as Dr. Jones said, if you don't have a spiritual foundation or another kind of foundation, it just ends up being very, very unhealthy for us. And so I am really glad that we are having this discussion today. Sometimes it sounds really spooky, right? Like, you know, I can't get help and it's going to cost too much money. But some things, Dr. Jones, we can do for ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
That's right.
He started out by saying, by just talking to other people. But you brought up a good point. Chadwick Boseman, rest in heaven, impacted the world through his work, through his life, and through how his passion was for people. Now, people, once a sudden death happens, they're like, why? You know, everybody questions, why did so-and-so die? And because we are not God, we don't have that true answer to the why. But then we say, as we say about the whole thing with COVID, why didn't they do more, right? Because I had to get on a group of my friends because everybody is going to protest different. Some might give money. Some might call somebody and talk to them during their time of anger or depression. Some might be on the front line. Now's the millennials' time. They're out there. They're protesting, right? But we got to vote. We understand that too. But my question is, you can't judge a person by what you think they should be doing. And Chadwick can't defend himself right now, but they're saying that maybe he should have said more. But then again, maybe he shouldn't have. Maybe he wanted to talk to who he wanted to talk to, or maybe he talked to people and it wasn't publicized. What's your thoughts on that? About Dr. Jones, about people always trying to tell you what you should be doing?
This is, okay. Can I just get deep for a minute? Just
right. Hold on.
Okay,
so do I do my mask or snorkel? What? How deep?
Okay, so colon cancer or Crohn's. See, you know, it's interesting when I first saw the word compassion in the Greek. You know, Jesus was moved with compassion and he healed people. A lot of the miracles that he operated in was because he was moved with compassion. Because he did miracles. He's teaching us how miracles work and healing works. But one of the ways it works, when he fed the 5,000, he said they're hungry. He's moved with compassion. When I first saw that word compassion, it's in the medical terms are taken from Greek, and the New Testament is Greek, and the same word is splanchnizomia. I'm like, wait a minute. So when it says he's moved with compassion, another way it's like he has a gut-wrenching pain. Oh, they're hungry. Oh, they're going to see. Some people really have a gift of compassion. In fact, in Romans 12, it talks about the 7 gifts of the Father. The last one is mercy, and it says with cheerfulness. In the margin of my Bible says people with this gift have a tendency to get into depression and moroseness because they're carrying other people's stuff in their gut, and it's gut-wrenching. So Jesus gives it to the Father gives back the miracle. If we don't give it to God, then we're carrying it. We're carrying other people's stuff in the spirit. And so a lot of times we can say, you know, somebody's hurting, I can pick that up. In fact, that's actually part of the gift of healing, the gift of the word of knowledge plus the gift of healing. Some people know what I'm talking about. But anyway, sometimes we don't know what it is, because what I've seen is sometimes we're carrying the burdens of others before we're born. In the mother's womb, we're already carrying stuff. Well, this family's jacked up. Oh, I got to go. What am I going to do for these people? You got to give it to God. You got to cast your cares on the Lord. You got to unload your burdens. And see, so if you have that gift, if you're very sensitive, as a Christian psychiatrist, I would say a large percentage of the people I see are Christians and Catholics. I tease them like that. Some of you can pick up AM and FM and VHF and cable and satellite, and you're just picking up all these things, and you have to learn to unload it because you're sensitive. You care. Caring people care. Uncaring people don't care. Some people don't care. You know, you dying, that's too bad. Don't die on my property. You know, but some people are so sensitive. And see, so really it's very imperative to unload stuff because now there's so much stuff. And I just want to say one more thing about the media. Don't be watching the TV every day. They're always talking about bad news. You see, so now you're accumulating more and more and more and more. You see, so now that people are turning to drugs and drinking and all these other things, or violence. Now we need to we need to learn how to unload stuff. Please.
It made me want to watch The Wiz again, so I can sing that song. Don't nobody bring me no bad news. I don't want no bad news. You hear me?
No bad news. We had enough bad news.
No bad news, right? If your kids hadn't watched that, let them watch that for a second. Now, if they're too young, they're gonna be scared of the taxi and that little part where they make the noise. Anyway, do y'all remember that from The Wiz? Look, I'm going another place because I don't want our minds to get stuck on the bad news. But the thing that we need to do on the chicken box is get on our box every now and then, and we have to express that inward feeling and get it out and unload it.
Yeah.
Dr. Jones said, unload it on the Lord. Here, carry this heavy bag. It's like
on a regular basis.
He's ready for it. He's
every
like,
day.
I can carry all the bags. I can carry all of the bags. This is the Chicken Box if you just tuned in, and we're broadcasting from the Afro-American who just had a birthday Facebook page, 128 years. We've been carrying the stories. And so we've heard the stories. We've heard the loads. We've seen it in print. You can look at our archives and check out all of the things that us as a people have endured, but we are resilient, like Dr. Jones stated in the beginning of the show. So this is your lunchtime hour where you get on the box and you speak your truth. Now, my truth. Now, here's another thing I wanted to say, Dr. Jones and Dr. Draper and Misha. When you don't agree with somebody else, people tend to get upset. Okay, I don't agree with what you like. I don't agree that you're a Republican or a Democrat, or you like to watch this and I like to watch that. So now you're upset. You're canceling people in the Black community, and you're done with them because you don't agree. And that whole thing is what happens out there in the street, and somebody shoots somebody because they don't agree with what you're doing, and so you don't agree with what they're doing, and so in 30 seconds you make a bad decision that could cost you a lifetime of trouble, either shooting somebody or really doing harm to somebody or to yourself because you didn't agree with what I agree with. Speak on it. Somebody get on the box.
Get on the box. Yeah, well, that's another whole topic about, I think it depends on how you offload the criticism. I think that's what we're talking about. You know, people are going to say things that you don't agree with all the time. We weren't created to always agree with one another. You can have a disagreement without being disagreeable. And so when we learn how to offload some things, as Dr. Jones has said, in a healthy way, and stop filling our spirits and our minds with things that are unhealthy, it'll help us to not be as disagreeable for some of us. Now, some people are they're more disagreeable than others, and so they're more sensitive than others. And so that's a different story. But the only person you can control is yourself.
Misha,
you cannot control somebody else.
Misha, the millennial, my children get upset if somebody puts something in the comments, somebody they don't know, somebody who usually wouldn't say it to you if they saw you in your face, but they commented in a way that has got you twisted. What's that all about?
Well, let me just start by saying millennials really have taken call out culture to the next level. I don't know if it's because we are the generation of the internet, but people will call you out on the internet in an instance. And sometimes that gets really dangerous. And so part of that anger that we see with our Twitter fingers and our Instagram and Facebook fingers, I think it is people calling one another out. And generally, you're right. They would not have the guts to do so in person, but there is that level of protection that is the interweb, that give people the amount of comfort to go crazy on the internet. You know, I that again is another conversation about mental health, because people go so deep into that and get angry in it, and it completely will change their day. You know, I'll see people threads of just long internet feuds, and I wonder, you know, when is this going to end, and is this impacting people's mental health, or is it just going on the internet? And I know that's not the case, because the emotions are flowing. But yeah, you know, I think it's a millennial thing that has gone into other generations, as we see somebody's president, not mine, who's a boomer, gets just as crazy on the internet. So, you know, while I say millennials have made it a popular thing, I'm seeing that everyone's falling into the deep, dark web of internet feuding.
Let me just say something. Let me say something about that. See, I think, you know, if you get triggered and somebody pushes your buttons, then we got to remember that that's a trigger. And that's not the gun. That's the trigger. And so when they push your buttons like that, that means your stuff is coming out. The stuff that you had repressed, denied, and had put out. Okay, now I'm not going to work on. We're not. Now you push my buttons, and that stuff's coming out, which. In a way, it's good, because, you know, working in a psych ward. I've been on a psych ward for 20 years. You're working with people that are having nervous breakdowns, and see, so they're like, I can't take no more. Like, Papa, I can't take no more. Now it's all coming out, which on the surface looks bad, but in reality, it's good, because now you're not pretending anymore. Now you're dealing with stuff, and see, so now we can actually go to where the trauma was from your childhood or your past, or whoever hurt you, molested you, whatever, and we can invite Jesus there to heal that. And that's where healing can happen so quickly. See, so people that look the worst actually they're the quickest to get healed. Just, you see that in the Bible. People are desperate. You know, they come to Jesus, they're desperate. People that don't, you know, I'm not desperate. I'm the Pharisees and couldn't seize and wouldn't seize. I'm a big shot. I don't need you, Jesus. I don't need a pandemic. I'm a rich young ruler. I'm doing well. So the good news is, when you're really down and out, there's a great opportunity to turn things around.
The trigger, y'all. Black people versus the trigger. Listen, the trigger, for the first time we heard, is good, because all of that suppressed angst or anger or depression, or, you know, it's like it hit your spot, and so it came out finally. Like, hopefully you can deal, and you can put yourself in control, and that you don't go, because I've seen people in the media get fired because just their trigger gets pulled, Dr. Jones, and now they're off the air because they had so much suppressed that they couldn't hold it down. So we were wrapping up close to the lunchtime hour. If anybody who is watching us wants to get on the box and put something in there in the comments that you want us to deal with up on the box, throw it in the chat real quick. We thank you for taking your lunch break, or if the East Coast breakfast break, or if it's in Africa, maybe you're just getting off from work. I don't know where you are. Somebody said they were in Japan. I can't calculate that time right now. I don't know if it's 12, 14 hours ahead. Anyway, that's what's so beautiful about the internet. And the great thing about it is you can watch us when we're live, or you can watch it when you want, if you think this information is good for someone. Because the young lady, Miss Kent or Mrs. Kent, who said about her 17-year-old, they don't want to talk about anything. Everything is inside. How you doing? Fine. Like, they have nothing but about 1 or 2 words to say about everything, unless you come in their room and catch them on FaceTime, which they talk on FaceTime. They talk on FaceTime and come into the room, and you don't even know that they're on FaceTime. Right? And so they're asking you questions, and their friends are hearing the answer. So they can do so much talking, except when it comes to you. So we have to get our youth to talk again. So if you have something on the box that you want to push in, Bonnie Deans, thanks for tuning in. Heidi, we see Heidi said It's some white people who have a problem also with with talking about mental health. Thank you for sharing that. 74 Fleetwood, our culture today is a trigger that guards us with buzzwords, all kind of buzzwords. And a lot of those buzzwords, 74 Fleetwood, is things that we have internalized and that we have now believed that someone has said about us. And so we now have put that in our DNA and we manifest it based on somebody else's thoughts. So we're gonna, who wants to get on the bottom? I'm gonna let Dr. Jones go last because he know. This is a high level view. Like I could really talk to Dr. Jones and we could talk to Dr. Jones every day during COVID to help a lot of people just get to a place of Wu-San. Like people like, you don't watch the news. I don't want to wake up with that news. I don't want to go to bed with that news. I don't want to hear it because, you know, if it's something bad, somebody's going to call you anyway. Did you hear about the fire? Did you hear about this person who got, they're going to tell you, you know what I mean? But if you put all of that input in, instead of something positive, if something godly, something that can really build you up, you are going to be torn down day after day after day after day. People call me and they say, how you doing? I am great. They're like, I'm just hanging in there. I'm like, well, I'm great. I can't buy into your story when you call me. You had to come up to my story when I call you. I guess I was on the box. Okay, Misha, you can get on the box. I was on the box. When you call me, I'm great, okay?
Hey, when Misha gets on the box, I hope she'll give us the Afro fact for the day because all news is not bad news.
Matter of fact, yes. 128 years of facts that the Afro has. And what is the Afro fact for today? I'm sorry, Misha. I forgot all about it.
No worries, but today is an amazing day because this week's Afro fact is inspired by September 3rd, 1838, the day that abolitionist, journalist, and freedom fighter Frederick Douglass escaped slavery. Yes, I mean, so it's crazy because that should be like part of our freedom
from Maryland.
Anyway,
he escaped from Maryland.
What did you say? He escaped from Maryland. We're going to get into that in 2 seconds. Well, first, before I say it, does anyone know how he did it? And someone can throw it in the comments. Anybody in our group?
Tell us about it, Misha.
All righty. So Douglass had picked up several skills when he was forced to work in Baltimore shipyards, which truly ended up helping him in the end. He dressed as a sailor, and Douglass escaped slavery when he snuck and grabbed a train headed to Philadelphia. And here's a quote directly from Douglass. He said, "My free life began on the 3rd of September, 1838. On the morning of the 4th of that month, after an anxious and most perilous but safe journey, I found myself in the big city of New York, a free man. One more added to the mighty throng which, like the confused waves of the troubled sea, surged to and fro between the lofty walls of Broadway." And that's this week's Afro fact.
The lofty walls. Huh. Who knew that? Who knew that Afro fact?
Exactly.
Man, we got 128 years of Black history right here. Is that a word? Cheer.
It is. We definitely need a Black people versus Ebonics, but we'll get
right. Again, care and zinc and all the rest of the words that we make up and use over the years. But we know what it means when you say it, though. We know what it means. All right. So, Dr. Draper, it's hot grease time. We know we didn't even have prayer. Your mic's on mute. Your mic's still on mute. Dr. Draper.
That's true that my mic is on mute. trying to drown out the background noise. And so, yeah, we have 128 years of history. I want to just, I'm going to get on the box about this because Misha sparked this, and sometimes this impacts our mental health. Listen, language is culture. And I say that again, language is culture. And so language is a communication skill. And so if I'm able to communicate it, even though I'm not saying it correctly, and you know what it means, and it's part of our culture, I don't have to always explain it for you to correct me, rather, to tell me I need to say it differently. And most of us know that when we get in different settings, we speak a little differently, at least we try to, right? But when we are with one another, because language is culture, we have some things, and we may do that show. We have some things that we'll say one to another that we understand, and it's our way of communication, and others don't need to define for us how we communicate. So I'm on the box about that, because sometimes our mental health gets out of whack because we're trying to be somebody or be something that we are not. Let's be who we are, genuinely who we are, people of compassion and love, and does not mean that we just, when people talk about, well, you just butchered the king's English, who is the king? We were we're kings and queens out of Africa before there was a European king. And I just believe, I'm on the box, that when you know who you are, you'll know what to do. And our culture is important. And it's important for us to do, as Dr. Jones said, I believe, we got to pass our story down. You don't find, people get tired of the Jews talking about the Holocaust, but they talk about it because they pass that down from generation to generation so that their young people will understand where they came from. We got to a certain point where we thought we needed to give our young people everything, and some of them and some of us don't understand where we came from. So therefore, if you don't know where you came from, how long I got to be on the box? I can be on the box for a minute here now.
Well, you can wrap it up whenever you want to. It's mental. It's the mental health issue. So if you need to go a little longer, go a little longer.
Dr. Jones said, "Get it out, get it out, get it out," and we started a little bit. I am getting it out, and so I'm a little bit sick and tired, if I can use that over and over again, of folk putting down Black people for the way we talk, or the way we dress, or the way we wear our hair, or the way we walk. That's how God created us. Let's be, intentional about preserving our culture. We don't need to assimilate just because somebody else defines what's beautiful for us. All right, so that's it. I'm off the box. I'm off.
Okay, I'm sorry. I gotta hop back on. First of all, can we just give it up for that moment, though? Oh my goodness, this is why Pastor needed to preach to us today. But I mean, everything you said, I think, is so key to what we're experiencing now, because we've had to squelch you, or people have been told that we have to squelch who we are. We can't show who we are. We can't express our natural hair. We can't express who we are and the appreciation of our language and culture. I mean, going back to the first episode, people were talking about how they were embarrassed to eat fried chicken, right? You know what I mean? And I think that has so much impact on our psyche. And so we look at these really code switching, like Dolores and Pearsall just said. Code switching is a thing that we do, and luckily we have that ability to do. But there are those people, and I can admit, I know when I was in undergrad in particular, I was so caught up in that code switch that I felt like I was not me anymore. Being in a predominantly white institution, not having to have that. That was the first time I ever went to go see a therapist, was in college, because I was losing myself. I was feeling so disconnected from me. While I had nothing diagnosed or anything, it was so helpful just to be able to talk to someone and get out what I was experiencing. Because I think that is such a key point to many of our struggles with mental health, particularly in the professional Black community. So I'm gonna hop off on my box, talk to somebody, and check on your friends. Check on your friends. Ask, you good, sis? You good, bro? It's so important. We just lost a huge person in the DC and music community in general. And I don't want to give any. There's been no confirmation that he died from suicide, but that has been the general thought. And everyone's post has been like, but we needed to check on him. We needed to check on him. So check in on your friends in a major way. It's so important.
Thank you. I'm on the box. You can't buy into what everybody has to say about you. What does the Bible say about you? We're more than conquerors, which means we can conquer something. If you are a believer, I'm speaking to you. It's the same God who brought the Egyptians out of slavery, opened the Red Sea. Everything that you have read and hopefully believed in the Bible, it's the same God. You cannot allow or should not allow what people say, the media says, comments say, to determine or define who you are. You have to know who you are. So like Pastor Tony said, when you know who you are, you'll know what to do, and you will know how to move. I hear people saying the F-bomb word 2020. I hear it every day, but then there's some things in 2020 that wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't have got to know your kids. You wouldn't have got closer to your family. You wouldn't have got to spend more time with each other. It's a lot of things that if you just took the bad, that's considered bad, what can be considered bad, maybe God was considering it for good. So I'm off the box. Dr. Leland.
I just want to say that, I'm sort of, how's that? I'm coming out. Diana Ross is, so I've been, so just working on my own patients, and I'm sure you, my cousins here know that. So I'm coming out. I actually got 3 webinars this month, and so they'll put them on the website. So some of them are, one of the things I want to focus on is helping counselors and therapists and pastors with mental, help them with their own mental illness, but especially how to help their parishioners, their patients, and so forth. So I'm going to be doing some webinars this month, and in different areas. So if you want to check my website, it's drlelandjones.com, and so that's the area I really want to move away from seeing individual patients so much, and help other people on how to help broken people. How can you do that in a holistic way? So this has been very good. I'm very pleased. I'm very glad that that we have gone into mental health. This is an area that really is put on the back burner, especially in the Black community. We don't want to talk about. There's so much embarrassment. The nigga crazy, and so we don't want to go there. We don't touch that. And so now we're beginning to open up. So it's okay to talk. Let me just give one more. I'm into what works. One of the things that really helps is to journal. I tell people, if people journaled, you put psychiatrists out of business, because now you're journaling. You can journal from. You don't have to journal like what you did today. Your inner child can journal. You can talk to God in your journal. You can put your prayers down, and so you can start to getting feedback. And so when you're talking to other people, you're starting to see things that you ordinarily didn't see. And so you can be honest. You can be honest. You can be open. You say your teenager doesn't talk. Get your teenager to journal and to write prayers, write to others. And see, so things aren't just repressed, and we're spending a lot of energy keeping things hidden. So that's where talking to others and talking to God, and just talking to ourselves. We don't, like you said, people don't know who am I? I don't know who I am. So so my prayer is that we can be this whole pandemic and all of the racial issues. God has a purpose here. There is a purpose here. He has a purpose. What looks bleak and black, there is a purpose. God is uncovering something, and just as strong as the COVID has been, God is stronger than that. And so we're going to see a lot of resurrection. There's a resurrection side on the other side of death. There's a death, burial, but there is a resurrection, and that is coming.
Absolutely. I was listening to Dr. Jamal Bryant the other night, and he was like, we're 9 months into this, and it's a baby that's being born. It's something that's good, that's about to be birthed, if you can endure the labor. Everything's not death. We're laboring. We're laboring for something good. This is the Chicken Box. Hopefully you had a good lunch, you had a good breakfast, or you had a good conversation through the chat, or just listening to us. Share it. Next week, we are dealing with Black people versus the vote. We don't even want to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it because some folks are thinking that it's not going to make a difference. And for everything that we struggled for over these last years, if you don't think it makes a difference, then go I want to say vote for Trump, but anyway, don't vote for Trump. I want to say jumping late. I want to just say you're losing your complete mind if you don't think your vote makes a difference. And that's why Trump is in there now. Anyway,
Okay, that was, you said his name 3 times. That's it. You can't say it next week.
No endorsements.
All right, I'm sorry. Anyway, God knows the Trump's in the 4. All right, we're doing a Trump count. 5. We're about to Trump, so y'all better get out there and vote. Anyway, thanks for tuning in to the Chicken Box. And if you haven't liked us on the Afro Facebook page, please do. And we have now moved to a membership model, everybody. So go to afro.com and become a member so that you can stay informed, inspired, and educated. That's right. Membership has its privileges, and we want to share them with you. So have a great afternoon, evening, week, weekend, wherever you are. Good night, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Jones.
Good night. Good afternoon.